The knock wasn't gentle. It was the kind that rattled glass and froze blood. Amara Johnson, 7 months pregnant, clutched her belly as she moved toward the door of her new suburban home. Her husband Marcus was still on base, finishing a week of deployment duties. She'd told him she'd be fine, that the neighborhood was quiet, safe. She was wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're rewatching from. I love knowing who's listening. Outside stood Officer Grant, the self-appointed HOA enforcer with a badge from a local security firm and a chip on his shoulder the size of the state. He'd already made it clear that people like her didn't belong there. "You've been warned about that vehicle in your driveway," he growled, pointing at Marcus's old military truck. "It violates community standards." Amara tried to stay calm. "Sir, my husband, don't talk back," he snapped. "I asked you nicely last week." She took a slow breath. Her doctor had told her not to stress. But when she turned slightly, just to step back inside, Grant's boot slammed the door wide open. The sound cracked through the air like thunder. Mara fell backward, hitting the floor, gasping for air as her body seized in panic. Her phone slid across the tile, screen flickering with the name, "Marcus, incoming call." Grant froze. For a moment, even he realized he'd gone too far. But pride made him dangerous. "Next time, maybe you'll follow the rules," he muttered before turning to leave. He didn't make it far, because Marcus had already answered the call. He'd heard everything. 3 minutes. That's how long it took. The neighbors would never forget it, the sudden thunderous growl that rolled down the street. 3 armored military convoys, dust swirling behind them, roaring through the peaceful suburban gates. Soldiers in uniform stepped out with precision, faces unreadable. And from the lead vehicle, Marcus emerged. His face was calm, the kind of calm that comes right before a storm. His commanding officer had tried to stop him, but when Marcus said, "My wife's been attacked," there was no stopping him. The convoy followed in silent loyalty. Grant, still standing on the sidewalk, blinked at the approaching trucks. "What the hell?" he muttered. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Step away from my house." Neighbors peeked from behind curtains. Phones recorded from porches. The tension was electric, a quiet, simmering justice ready to ignite. Grant straightened, suddenly aware of the dozens of eyes on him. This is private property. You can't just..." Marcus cut him off. "You kicked in a door. You assaulted a pregnant woman. You broke the law." He stepped closer, his military ID still hanging around his neck. The reflection of the badge catching Grant's trembling hands. One of the convoy soldiers handed Marcus a phone. "Sir, the sheriff's on the line. He's requesting confirmation." Marcus nodded, eyes still locked on Grant. "Tell him we're securing the scene. Non-lethal." Grant's knees buckled. "This isn't in me." But meaning didn't erase the fear in Amara's voice, still echoing in Marcus's ears. The sheriff's department arrived minutes later, not with sirens, but with silence. The kind of silence that shows respect, because they knew Marcus, knew his service, knew what kind of man he was. When the real deputies took Grant into custody, Marcus didn't look triumphant. He looked tired. Amara sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket one of the soldiers had handed her. Her hand shook as she reached for her husband's. "I thought you wouldn't make it in time," she whispered. He knelt, pressing his forehead gently to hers. "Never have to face anything alone again, not while I'm breathing." Her tears fell quietly. "It's just the way he looked at me, Marcus, like I didn't belong." He swallowed hard, anger trembling behind calm eyes. "Then we'll remind them, not with fear, but with dignity." Days later, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. The entire neighborhood showed up, every seat taken, every whisper silenced when Marcus stood. He didn't shout, he didn't accuse. He simply told the story. How his wife was treated. How the man who claimed to enforce community values had shattered them instead. By the time he finished, the only sound was quiet sobbing and the unanimous vote to dissolve the HOA security contract. The same neighbors who once avoided eye contact now brought flowers to Amara's porch. They said thank you for standing tall when others hid. Because courage doesn't always look like combat. Sometimes it looks like restraint. Months later, a small plaque appeared by the neighborhood entrance. It read, "In honor of those who serve and the families who endure, this community stands for respect, not control." Every morning, as the sun broke over the rooftops, Amara would trace her fingers over those words before walking back home. Her child would be born in that same house, not in fear, but in peace. Because when injustice knocks, it may think it has power. But real power, the kind that protects, heals, and rebuilds, arrives with unity. And sometimes, it arrives in 3 military convoys. Because justice doesn't whisper, it rumbles through the gates. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Marcus's shoes?